Over half the properties you see on Trade Me actually don't have a price attached. So how do you figure out what to offer when you're out there looking for a house? Well, that's something I recently wrote about in my weekly One Roof column. So in this video today, you're going to learn how to figure out what a seller is willing to accept, and we're going to use this property as an example. I'm Ed, an economist here at Opes Partners, and this is Property Now. Let's say I was interested in this property here, 12 Maple Place. It's in Rangiora, which is just outside of Christchurch in Canterbury, and it's sold now, but it was offered as a deadline sale, so no price advertised. It's a 4-bedroom property, 2 baths, and it was built back in 2008. Now, how do I know what this property is going to sell for? How do I know what it's worth? Well, I could look at the homes estimate on homes.co.nz, but these are often inaccurate. You know, only half of properties sell within 10% of the homes estimate. So let me put that in context. Let's say there was a property and homes.co.nz said it was worth $1 million. Well, you've only got a 50-50 chance, a coin flip, that it sells for between $900,000 and up to $1.1 million. A massive 200K range. Okay, what else could I do? I could look at the government valuation, the GV, sometimes known as the RV or the CV. Well, those could be okay, but they're often just computer estimates too, and often a couple of years old. Here's what I do. I find the property on One Roof or homes.co.nz, and I scroll down to the bottom to get to the map. Then what I do is I untick for sale. I don't want to see properties that are currently for sale. I want to find properties that have recently sold, and that allows me to go around, look at the suburb, and find similar properties and see what other people have actually paid for them. Now, this is the only thing that actually matters. What people have actually paid for properties in the area. And this is going to give me a really good sense of what are people willing to pay for properties. But what do I do with this information? Open up Excel and create a few columns. Now, what we want to know is the address of all the properties that recently sold, what they sold for, when they sold, the beds, baths, garages, the floor area, the site area, and here's something really important. We also need to add in whether the properties that recently sold are better or worse than the house you're looking at buying. Now let's start by putting in the details about 12 Maple Place, which is the one we're trying to figure out the price of. Now that is also in Rangiora. We don't know what it's sold for, but it's 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2 garage. The site area is 600, and if we go back to One Roof, we can see that the floor area is 194 square meters. Now it's time to look for some of those comparable properties. Now I've actually found them on homes.co.nz because sometimes it's a bit easier to get the data on there. So 32 Sequoia Way sold in March 2023, which is roughly when this property was available for sale. Now it sold for $820,000, so I will put that detail in there. Now, what's interesting about this property is it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2 garage property. It is about the same size, maybe slightly smaller than the property we're looking at, and very, very comparable site area. But what we've got to do is look at the photos and compare it to the one we're interested in. Now, when I look at these photos here, flicking through, this is a very modern property. We can see it with the taps, we can see it with some of the lights. And I actually think even though this property has only 3 bedrooms, and the one we were looking at, Maple Place, has 4 bedrooms, I actually think that Sequoia Way is a better property. I think it would have sold for more money than the one that I'm looking at. So I would say that this one is slightly superior. Now that becomes really important a little bit later on. Let's look at another comparable property out there on the internet. Here's one. It is 17 Sequoia Way. Now this one sold for $745,000. This was back in 2022. Now that's a few months before the property that we're looking at, 12 Maple Place, was available for sale. But let's put it in there anyway. It is 17 Sequoia Way. This one also had 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 garages. The floor area was 169 and the site area 605. Now, when I look at those details and compare it to the property that I'm interested in, they are extremely comparable. They are only 2 streets away from each other. And when I look at the photos, I think it looks really similar quality to 12 Maple Place. So I would say that is comparable. So I would expect Maple Place to sell for something very close to $745, which is what Sequoia Way sold for. Now, what I would do is then go through and do this another 5 or 6 times to get enough data about what's going on in that specific area. And the really important part of collecting all of this data about the beds, the bathrooms, the floor area, that is also, you can be really honest with yourself when you go through and say, is this property that recently sold better or worse than the one I'm interested in? Now here's the trick. To find out what to offer, you rank these properties from best to worst. Put all of the ones that are slightly superior above the property you want to buy, and put all of the ones that are slightly inferior below the property that you want to buy. And this is where it gets really simple. The house you want, well, it's not as nice as these superior properties, so it's probably going to sell for less money than those that are a bit more premium. So I would offer less than $780. I would offer less than $820,000 in this instance. But the house you want to buy, in this case, 12 Maple Place, it's probably going to sell for more money than the inferior properties. It's a nicer property, so it should fetch a higher price. You should offer more than $730,000 or $615,000 in this exact same process. Now, here's the thing. This is what real estate agents actually do. This is the same process they use when they appraise and put a price on a property. They just pay a couple of grand to make it a bit faster and use a different piece of software. Now in this case, I'd probably offer about $745,000 for Maple Place, which is exactly the same price that a comparable property, Sequoia Way, ended up selling for. And if I was you, I'd use this information to negotiate with the real estate agent. You can say things like, your seller's not going to get $800,000 for this property. 12 Beach Drive, just up the road, sold for $810,000, and it's a way nicer property. So you can go and say, tell your seller he's dreaming. Now, this property, 12 Maple Place, actually ended up selling for $750,000. Not far off from what we estimated it'd go for. And if you want to learn more about investing in property, head over to our website, opespartners.co.nz. We help regular Kiwis grow their wealth through new built investment properties.